In this video, we're going to continue with solving equations, and first let's review what's going on. Our goal, as always, the goal of solving equations is to isolate that variable, get the variable by itself. M equals, K equals, X equals. Get that variable by itself. And the way we're going to accomplish this goal is by using inverse operations. And by operations, again, we mean in terms of paired inverses. Addition and subtraction are inverses of each other. Multiplication and division are inverses of each other. Squaring and square rooting are inverses of each other. So we're going to use inverse operations to accomplish the goal of isolating the variable. Let's get into it. But before we move on, press pause and rewrite all of this information. Yes, rewrite this information. Why? It helps solidify the knowledge. Again, we start just by simply talking it out. This is A divided by 4 equals negative 11. Okay, so what's the goal? The goal is to get A by itself. And so I start looking around and I see that 4 is attached to A via division. What's the opposite of division? Multiplication. So I'm going to multiply on both sides by the value that I see, 4. Now 4A divided by 4 cancels out to become just A on the left side. So that brings us down to our just value of A. And on the right side, we're going to multiply, and negative 11 times a positive 4 is a negative 44. That's it. Okay, our next problem, negative 1 equals negative 16 plus m. And so working with me, who has to go? Well, we want m to be by itself, so who has to go? This negative 16. And so the concept of addition and or subtraction holds them together. So if I want to get rid of the 16, I'm going to add 16 to a negative 16. And whatever I do on the right side, I'm going to do on the left side. So I'm going to bring down everything from left to right. I want to move from left to right. So as I clean this up, negative 1 plus 16 is the same as 16 minus 1, 15. Negative 16 plus 16 is 0, and the m comes down. And I'm left with m equals 15 as a final answer. So now you move on to our next question. You see negative 16x is equal to 320, and you grab for that calculator, but don't grab too quickly. First, what's the goal? The goal is to isolate x. 16 is attached to x by multiplication, so we're going to divide, right? And so what are we going to divide by? The number that I want to go away, negative 16, on both sides. And on the left side, negative 16 divided by negative 16 is a positive 1x, which is what I wanted. Over on the right side here, we have a positive 320 divided by negative 16. That's a negative answer. Now just think about this without the 0. What's 32 divided by 16? 2. Well then, what's 320 divided by 16? 20. So positive 320 divided by negative 16 is a negative 20. Writing along and moving along with me, move on to our next question. And we got lots of negatives here, but first let's just focus on getting x by itself. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the 13 using the inverse operation of what I see here, and what I see is subtraction. So I'm going to add 13 to both sides, and then I'm going to clean this up from left to right. A negative 21 plus 13, well, there's more negatives than positives, so that's a negative answer, and 21 minus 13 is 8. Okay, and negative 8 equals negative x, right? We're going to bring that negative x right down. Now, we don't have x by itself yet because technically we want it to be x, not negative x. There is a negative 1 sitting in front of x, so we're going to divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. A negative 8 divided by a negative 1 is a positive 8. And a negative 1 divided by a negative 1 is a positive 1x, and there is our final answer. Up at the top here, I have written popular errors. Adding integers, which if you go onto the math links shortcut on the high school website. We have a video and handouts just for adding integers. And sign errors via distribution are the two most popular reasons students make errors in solving equations. So let's take a look on how this plays out. In this problem, the first thing I see are these parentheses, which tells me that I have to distribute the 8 to the inside. The reason I have to distribute is because 8 minus n are not like terms, so I can't combine them. So I distribute to get rid of the parentheses. Positive 8 times positive 8 is positive 64. And a positive 8 times a negative n is a negative 8n equals 96. Now again, the goal is to eventually get n by itself. So we're going to subtract the 64 first. Right, we're going to leave the coefficient here of negative 8 until last. 64 minus 64 is 0. The 8n comes down. Here's a sign error opportunity for us, right? Don't forget that negative. That comes down as well. And then 96 minus 64 is 32. Next, we are going to choose division, the inverse of multiplication. That's how negative 8 is attached to n, by multiplication. And we're going to divide by negative 8 on both sides. On the left side, cleaning it up from left to right, negative 8 divided by negative 8 is positive 1n, which is what we want. Positive 32 divided by negative 8, well, positive divided by negative is a negative. 32 divided by 8 is 4. And there you have it. Moving on. Still, the first thing I notice are these parentheses, so I'm going to distribute the negative 6. So what do I do with that negative 2? Nothing. The negative 2 just comes down. Now I'm going to distribute that negative 6. Negative 6 times a positive 1 is negative 6. Negative 6 times a positive 5b is a negative 30b equals 82. Using inverse operations, first thing we're going to do here is combine like terms. That's going to be negative 8 minus 30b equals 82. Now we're going to use inverse operations. Add 8 to both sides. And we clean this up from left to right. We're going to get 0 minus 30b, right? Bringing down that whole program plus the negative equals 90. And we're going to choose division now. And we're going to divide by negative 30. The reason we're choosing division is the inverse of the operation that's holding negative 30 and b together, which is multiplication. Negative 30 divided by negative 30 is a positive 1b. And b is going to be equal to a positive divided by negative is a negative. 90 divided by 30 is the same as 9 divided by 3. 3. The reason I say that is I can reduce both 90 and 30. I can divide them both by 10, that reducing fractions business that we conquered earlier in the year. The goal always to avoid picking up a calculator unless absolutely necessary. On this problem, just slow and steady wins the race. First, I see some parentheses, so I'm going to distribute. Distributing a negative carefully. Negative 6 times 1 is negative 6, and a negative 6 times a negative 5p is a positive 30p. Equals, nothing happened on the right side, so I just bring everybody down, all the terms. Now, we have something new. We have a choice as to what side we want to put the variable. Now, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to choose to subtract 6p from both sides. And the reason being that if I subtract 30p from both sides, the 6p minus 30p would be a negative. And I'm not trying to create any negative coefficients. As I bring everybody down and clean this up, I'm going to have a negative 6 plus a 24p. Notice I have that positive coefficient, as I stated. That's why I went to the left side. Equals 6p minus 6p is 0, and the negative 30 comes down. Negative 30. Now, that goal of eventually getting p by itself, right? First thing I'm going to do is to get rid of the peripheral here, the constant, as we say. We chose addition because it's the opposite of subtraction. Gets rid of the 6 on the left side. Bring my 24p down. equals negative 30 and a positive 6. There's more negatives than positives, so the result of that is negative. 30 minus 6 is 24. Now I choose division, which is the opposite of multiplication. I divide by 24 on both sides, and I see a negative divided by a positive is a negative. 24 divided by 24, or any value divided by itself, is 1. So our final answer is negative 1. Let's try one more of those. Big and intimidating, but certainly doable. So the first thing I want to do is take care of this distribution over on the right side, and I'm just going to rewrite anything that's not getting distributed. 36 plus 8r, notice I'm working from left to right, equals, and now I'm going to distribute positive times positive 3 times positive 7 is positive 21r, and a positive 3 times a negative 8 is a negative 24 plus the 8. Combine like terms where I can, so the left side stays the same, 21r minus, and I have the 24 and the 8, more negatives than positives, so it's a negative answer. 24 minus 8, the difference of the two is 16. Now I'm going to, on this one, I'm going to choose to subtract 8r from both sides. Notice this time I put the variable on the right side as opposed to the last problem I kept the variable on the left side. Why did I do that? Because 21 minus 8 is positive versus 8 minus 21 would have been negative. I'm trying to avoid any complications. It works out either way, but that's my goal. 21r minus 8r is 13r minus 16. Now we're going to choose to add 16, and the reason being, right, the goal is to get r by itself. 36 plus 16 is going to be 52 equals 13r. Divide by 13, divide by 13, and as I clean it up from the left side to the right, 13 times 4 is 52. You may need a calculator for that one. And 13 divided by 13 is 1r, so r equals 4. Don't forget that the goal is to isolate the variable. Isolating the variable is our number one goal. We're going to do that by using inverse operations. And the last thing we want to do is, as we try to accomplish that goal, we're going to watch these popular errors, take our time, watch our signs. Good luck.